Be Frankie.
Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out, we're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out, we're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out, we're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out, we're stuck in the matrix.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy BDELL. If you're new to this channel, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Today, we're going to be breaking down the dynamics of neuromelanin and artificial intelligence and how they're using it for asymmetrical neurological warfare to extract our energy for their archonic forces. Now, the reason they're doing this is because they know that the God mind is the embodiment of the Philosopher's Stone that is tether connected to the nervous system that also works in synergy with the brain. We're going to get into that as we get through the presentation. So this is one of those videos where it's going to extrapolate an intrinsic amount of information talking about how artificial intelligence is basically being weaponized, right? It's being weaponized for asymmetrical neurological warfare, right? We finna get into it. Now, one thing you got to understand about Neuralink. Neuralink is the embodiment of a technocrat system. A technocracy is when you have a cybernetic dictatorship that is being facilitated by things like, Operation Paperclip, when you have, transhumanism working in synergy with all these corporations. And the reason they doing that is because they don't have the genetic format or the neurological faculties to harmonize with the transmission of the sun, right? Because, one thing you got to understand about the physiology of the Canaanite, right? The physiology of the Canaanite is that they have a cursed genetic and it's contained of sulfur. Sulfur basically blocks the spinal column. When the spinal column is blocked, that's when you don't get that elixir of immortality, that elixir that sits at the base of the spine when you're talking about the regeneration spinal fire that hits the pineal gland. Sulfur blocks away the energy to reach the apex of a Christ consciousness. So this is why they use a Neuralink in replace of the neuromelanin that they don't have. Because as I was telling you, neuromelanin is the brain and central nervous system melanin that is connected to the fascia system that is also tether connected to your nervous system that creates your energetic morphic field. So they don't have the genetic format in order to harmonize with these new energies that's coming in. So Neuralink that is being propagated and facilitated by Elon Musk, like I said, it's being weaponized, right? And they're going to trick you and try into basically trying to get it, right? When you already had those, neurological faculties in the genetic format to harmonize with the transmission of the sun as we go into the golden age, right? So all this is basically about genetic self-preservation because you got to understand the sensory resonance that is connected to the computers and the monitors of artificial intelligence and all the technological devices. So it's going to be another way to create the stimul receiver into where it creates a form of mind control, right? Because if they can control the mind, they control God. And remember, I was telling you, like I said, the Philosopher's Stone is the embodiment of the God mind. The God mind is when you're able to propagate right knowledge. Right knowledge is the Christ consciousness to where you break out of the conscious energy grid, which is basically an encryption over the brain, right? You have a firmament over the planet, then you have a firmament over your brain when you study the holonomic brain theory that was in the CIA documents. It tells you that the brain is tether connected to the simulation. So that's why you got to think outside the box. So anytime that you use a form of technology, you're putting yourself right back inside the box as far as artificial intelligence. right? Because artificial intelligence is a technological religion, right? And I'm going to prove it to you by way of the central system as we get through the presentation, right? So one thing you also got to understand is that the sensory resonance of artificial intelligence and these technological devices, it basically emits a pulsatic electromagnetic field that manipulates your nervous system. So when your nervous system is compromised, you're not able to tap into the energy of Christ consciousness, right? Because it's going to manipulate the energetic morphic field around you. So if you don't have the energetic morphic field around you, when you tap into the Christ consciousness, this is when you get non-corporeal entities in the form of ectoplasm is able to infiltrate your auric field and manipulate you by way of the mind or by way of the solar plex. Now, what you're looking at right now is a psychoelectronic weapon effects that is going to give you a blueprint on how they use, covert operations that is connected to the United States National Security Agency, right? And this was all facilitated in 1974. So they use electronics to basically destabilize the body, right? Because technology is the embodiment of the silver key, because the silver key tether connects you to the moon. So you're being facilitated by the energy of the moon by way of the technological devices, right? Because we all know that the moon is an artificial construct. It's a quantum satellite that controls the external hard drive to Saturn, right? Because it makes up the holographic projection, and the holographic projection is being emitted by Saturn and the moon that controls everything on the dark side of the moon when you're talking about the supercomputer. So the supercomputer of artificial intelligence is on the dark side of the moon. And it's on the dark side of the moon, and it's pulling on your emotions by way of the frequencies from the technology and artificial intelligence, right? So this is basically a blueprint on how they use a demo system of neurological control that basically creates this effect on the brain to the point where you're not able to think outside the box because, like I said, technology is what keeps you stuck in the demiurge. Technology or artificial intelligence is what keeps you stuck in a prison planet to where you're in a perpetual state of reincarnation. Remember those little floppy disks that we used to have when we was little kids, like the old computers back then. And if you had to save something, if you was typing a paper, you had to stick in this little floppy disk and save it. That's what artificial intelligence is basically doing. It's saving your essence, your authenticity. It's saving your neurons. It's saving your spirit and your soul. And it extracts it on the dark side of the moon, and then it projects it on the hexahedron on the cube of Saturn. We're finna get into that as we get through the presentation because this is another form of soul entrapment. Now, one thing you gotta understand about this Roman salute is basically connected to a certain regime over in Germany. I don't want to say the word, but we already know what time it is. So this is why, everything that's being propagated by Elon Musk and Donald Trump has a ultra-nationalist, Christian, organized-based religion system, right, that is connected to artificial intelligence. So it's another way to propagate this ideology in the form of eugenics, because eugenics is another way to extract your energy by way of these hate groups that's being propagated in the media. And they're going to create more coalitions as we get through the Great Awakening period because they know that our genetic format is going to destabilize the system. When it destabilizes the system, they're going to create these hate groups to go against us, which is going to create another civil war. So they're using these people as these hate groups as a form of eugenic systems to extract our physiology for artificial intelligence, and because they need our genetics. And the reason they need our genetics because, like I said, they don't have the ability to harmonize with the sun. So that is basically their embodiment of self-direction of human evolution, which is basically the eugenic system. Because eugenics, it draws its materials from many sources and organizations and them into a harmonious entity. What is that entity? That entity is an archonic force, right? That archonic force is Enlil. Enlil is Yaldabaoth. Yaldabaoth is Yahweh. Yahweh is Kronos, which is the god of Saturn. So that's why in the movie, I think it was in the movie, The First Purge, they created a coalition of hate groups to go against a certain demographic of blacks that was stuck on Staten Island, right? Because like I said, They need the melanin. They need not just any type of melanin. Everybody on the planet has melanin. Every living organism on the planet has melanin. But what they don't have is neuromelanin. Neuromelanin is what creates an intelligence molecule to where you're able to think outside the conscious energy grid system of the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is the encryption over the brain. It's an intelligence molecule that creates granulations and prominences that is extracted from the sun heat genes, where you're harmonizing with the sun because the sun is a gateway, a portal to the star Polaris, right? So that's why when you look at the word Bible means by means two, and it's comprised of the Egyptian Book of the Dead and the Egyptian Book of the Life. And the Egyptian Book of Life is tether connected to the sun. The Egyptian Book of the Dead is tether connected to the moon, right? So they know that by way of the silver key, they got to keep you stuck in this demiurge. And they're going to use it in the form of eugenics. And they use the eugenics system to extract our physiology so they can have some type of genetic self-preservation. Now, this is all connected to the archonic forces and how they use artificial intelligence to harvest our energy. They harvest our energy through technology, eugenics, human emotion, neuromelanin, the Saturn moon matrix, because I was telling you, Saturn and the moon is the external hard drive of planet Earth. And they also use the religion because the religion is also a form of a technocrat system that's tethered connected to technology. And I'm going to show you by way of the sigil system. They want to trick you into believing that you need technology in order to ascend on this planet when it's actually a lie. We already have the genetic format and the neurological faculties to harmonize with the sun as we get to a fifth dimensional civilization, because the hair is an antenna. That is the non-ether energy. Your eyes are the camera. Your ears are the satellites. Your nose is a sensor. Your heart is the electromagnetic generator, and the brain is the supercomputer, which is the neuroendocrine transducer, and your pineal gland is the virtual reality system that has the ability to manipulate the space-time continuum. But by way of the technology, they use chemical neuromorphic connection to extract your energy, and it destabilizes the neurotransmitters, which is an electromagnetic sensor. So they're trying to mess up your transmission and connection or your bioconductivity that's connected to the sun, right? This is why the archons, they need us, because they're ruler gods. They're not creator gods. They don't have the ability to create because they don't have human emotion, because human emotion travels on 0-point energy fields to where you're able to reset things by way of the heart chakra. When the heart chakra is activated, that's when you tap into the Christ consciousness. They don't have the ability to create, so that's why they use technology to harvest our energy, because they don't have the ability to create. Everything that's within the factions of the firmament is a prison planet. And they use the prison planet as a system of control by way of the technological devices that's connected to Saturn and the moon, right? This is what's going on right now, right? So the archon is artificial intelligence, right? So it's showing you right here in this demonstration, in this video I'm showing you, not this video, but this picture. It shows you the archons extracting our energy, right? Because the earth is the embodiment of a hexahedron, which is a cube. A cube is a representation of the physical world or the material plane. So they use the material plane to harvest our energy, right? By way of human emotions. I think I got a video to show you guys. I think I went too far deep. Let me get into some videos real quick. Hold on. Now, hold on. Okay. I know I got some videos. I was trying to, I was going in too much. So we finna get, because you got to understand that artificial intelligence is being weaponized. You must understand that. You got to understand that, right? Now, one thing you got to understand about artificial intelligence is that I remember you guys seeing this video a long time ago. My computer froze up for a second. I know you guys remember seeing this video a long time ago. And this video was going to demonstrate on how Norman Burgum, he was basically working with NASA in the CIA groups and KGB and things of that nature. So he has all the secret information talking about these black extraterrestrial entities who are actually archonic forces. So he said that he's seen 7-foot black people in outer space on planet Saturn getting out of a spaceship, right? So you got to read the book, The Ringmakers of Saturn, because it's telling you how they cultivated the simulation and the demiurge by way of the extraction of the magneto-hydrodynamic Cassini gaps of the rings of Saturn that creates the plasmic holographic projection with subatomic particles, which are basically cube shaped. And this is how they created the firmament. They used the extraction of ice caps around the rings of Saturn, and they use it for soul trap mechanisms. Because on the top of the hexahedron, one thing I'm gonna break it down later, but you got 7-foot blacks. These blacks are the archons that I was basically showing you. They're basically a part of the faction of the Luciferian Anunnaki who fell from grace, 1/3 of the galaxy that went against the order of Anu. So now they use planet Earth to harvest energy because they don't have the ability to create, because they're not in the magnetosphere, the abode of mentalism, the abode of the Most High, where they're able to become a creator God. They lost that privilege. So now they fell in frequency. They fell in frequency. When you go to the book of Enoch, it talks about how 1/3 of the galaxy was extracted to Mount Hermon, right? We're going to get into that too. So those archons that I was showing you are 7-foot blacks that come from outer space, and he was a witness to it. And I call them Saturnians because Saturnians is Saturnalia. Saturnalia is Chronos. Chronos is actually Satan. So this is a Luciferian Anunnaki faction that is destabilizing humanity by way of AI and technology.
Our beings.
Okay, people have asked me about, I call them vehicles, okay?
Right.
Now,
If you can't hear it, turn it all the way up. Put it close to your ear. You just want to hear the dialogue that he's basically talking about. And these vehicles that he's talking about, they created these. You got to read the book Ringmakers of Saturn. They were using these quantum vehicles to create the ice caps on the rings of Saturn. And that's how they travel. They travel and then they extract energy and then they upload it into the supercomputer that controls human emotion by way of the supercomputer on the dark side of the moon. You gotta watch. You gotta look at that. You gotta peep that booklet by Norman Bergen.
I did not call them objects. That was too neuter for me.
Okay.
I had a Stanford professor said you ought to call them objects, Norm. No, they have all of the qualities of a vehicle. Mm-hmm. They can move. They're just like a missile or anything like that. So that much we can say about them, for sure.
Okay.
So I'm calling it a vehicle.
Okay.
Okay, somebody comes along and says, well, now where would you manufacture one that's 2.5 Earth lengths long? And that's a hard question to answer.
So are you not positing the idea that those vehicles contain, beings who are, maybe like us?
Yeah, I only go along with government images. And if you want to know about people kind of thing, there is the ship that picked up the Voyager capsule at Alameda.
You can tell, like I said, energy don't lie. You can tell he don't want to give out this, this information. This is classified information that he's given her. And I think a little after this, he came out with the book, and then a little after the book, he passed away. So you could tell that he don't really want to give it out. Because I'm going to show you what he was doing in the video.
Naval Shipyard. And they have a picture there of, I think it's the Apollo flight that Buzz and Neil were on. But anyway, there is one image there that shows black people getting off.
He said there's a footage that shows black people getting off. Anytime you see a European man, he goes something like that, you know he telling the truth. When he got to lean over and tell you the truth, and he's doing all this stuff like that, you know energy don't lie. You know what I'm saying? Energy do not lie.
But anyway, there is one image there that shows black people getting off.
So people with dark skin getting off,
Not dark, black.
black skin,
Really black. Yeah.
were they tall?
Yes.
Very tall?
Yeah.
How tall? Do you know?
Well, they got out the doorway. I don't know how high that is, but
Well, what?
they say 7 feet would be probably a conservative estimate.
Have you heard about Clark McClellan's statement about that?
No,
Oh, you haven't?
no,
Have you ever been in touch with him?
no.
No?
There is one image there that shows black people getting off.
So people with dark skin getting off,
Not dark, black.
black skin,
Really black. Yeah.
were they tall?
Yes.
Very tall?
Yeah.
How tall? Do you know?
Well, they got out the doorway. I don't know how high that is, but
Well, what?
they say 7 feet would be probably a conservative estimate.
So I also talked to the OG Rod Hayes. We was on the phone for about 2 hours, and I was telling him about this video. We all seen it, but you know, it's one of those things where when it comes to information, everything comes full circle. A lot of these videos, a lot of the movies that we watched in the past, is also extrapolated on the timeline that we're actually living in right now. And I was telling the OG Rod Hayes that, you know, the great majority of these archonic forces that we're talking about are the 7-foot blacks that Norman Bergen seen, right? And these archons are the embodiment of the black nobility who controls the European on the surface, right? That's why I put out the 2027 prophecy of popes on how they're going to use a black nobility member, a part of the faction and the bloodline of these archonic forces, to control and bring us into a one world religion. So archons are Saturnians. Saturnians are the Luciferian Anunnaki, the same beings that he was talking about, right, in the video. This is the beings that he was talking about. These are archons that fell from grace. They fell in frequency because they went against the order of Anu, 1/3 of the galaxy. This is all being extrapolated in the Bible. It's being extrapolated in many different monotheistic publications, right? So they are the ones who control the demiurge. The demiurge is being facilitated by Metatron's cube. Metatron's cube is the embodiment of Saturn. Saturn is Chromos. So this is why everything that's connected to the faction of democracy, when you look at the word krasi, right, in democracy, the suffix of the word, it means chronos or kratos, which is chronology, to where they keep you trapped in an artificial time analysis mechanism. And the time analysis mechanism is what you see at the top is the cube, the square. They want to keep you boxed in to suck up microscopic waves of energy and upload it into a neuromorphic cyber cloud on the dark side of the moon, and then project your essence on the hexahedron on the cube of Saturn to where you're in a perpetual state of reincarnation. So that's why everything in the system is the embodiment of a cube. You got the Kaaba and Mecca, and then when you unfold a cube, it's going to transmute into a crucifix. So that's why I said that religion is a soul trap mechanism, right? So this is what you got to understand. This is the reality of Gnosticism, the Gnostic reality of what's taking place on the planet. The archons, the black beings that the guy he was talking about, they're down here. They want to keep you stuck in the material world by way of the demiurge of Metatron's cube. This guy that you see right here at the top is Chronos. Right here at the top right here. He sits on the cube and he extracts your energy. to keep you stuck in the demiurge. So this is why humanity is stuck in a reincarnation cycle, right? But the true gods, the creator gods, everything they do is going to lead you right back to the mother, which is Sophia, right? So this is why you gotta break out of the Metatronic overlay by going through the path of the middle way to where you're not stuck in polarity. Because when you're stuck in polarity, hold on for a second. Because when you're stuck in polarity, you're stuck in the demiurge. The demiurge is what keeps you connected to the material plane. The silver key. The silver key. So that's what I'm saying. You go either you go back to the father, which is the demiurge, or you go back to the great mother at the galactic center when you go back to the star Polaris, right? That's what this is. That's what this is all about. Now, this is where we're going to get into some etymology and a little bit of linguistics. Because when you understand etymology, that's when you're able to dismantle the illusion that's being propagated on the surface. So when you understand the Tetragrammaton, Yahweh is actually agreeable and disagreeable because he's a representation of Jehovah, who is Allah, who is the epitome of God. When you go to the H1408 Strong Concordance, the word God translates to the word Gad, which is Gandril in the book of Enoch, who is actually Satan. Satan is actually the timekeeper of the demiurge, just like I was showing you. The demiurge shows you Kronos, the god of Saturn. Saturn is Satan's Saturnalia. This is why they use all their monotheistic religions, because like I said, religion in itself is a form of artificial intelligence as well, right? But it's more on a mundane and trivial aspect of it. So when you study Gnosticism, etymology, and coinage, and by way of the sigil system, they're going to show you that the chief of the archons are a malicious, jealous, egotistical, minor, supernatural who has deuded, and he is the God and the creator of the world. But that's like I said, when you go to the book of Genesis, it's talking about the creation of the simulation, not the creation of the world. Because in the book of Genesis, it talks about how Satan separated the intergalactic waters from the third dimension and created the firmament. The firmament is his world, right? That's why when he took Jesus on Mount Sinai, he said, you can have all this, right? Because it's the creation of the simulation, right? He is the timekeeper of the simulation, not the timekeeper of the world. Now, when you understand sigilcism, right? As you can see the crucifix sigil on these sigils and these symbols, and it's also tether connected to technology. Technology has a form of sigilcism. So anytime that you put a stemma receiver, a brain chip, or anything, you're being subjugated. Because when you look at some of the coinage, right, it shows you the same sigils that is acclimated to the sigil of Yaldabaoth. Why is it doing that? Same stuff, same system. This is just more on an archaeological level, on a transgressive level, but this is the true sigil system that is tether connected to the technology. So anytime you put technology inside your physiology, you're being controlled and weaponized by archonic forces, right? And I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to prove it to you to where it's undeniable that the archons are siphoning our energy by way of the technological radiation and by way of artificial intelligence. I'm going to prove it to you, right? So this is why, Elon Musk, he basically extrapolated that AI development could be acting to summon the demon, suggesting potential existential risk and for the need for cautious advancement. So, okay, we got that right. And then it tells you right here, in Gnosticism, the archons, world governing powers created by the demiurge, with the material world often viewed as forces of evil, error, imprisoning divine sparks in human souls, right? That's what that's basically demonstrating. So even when you go to the creation of the world, Gnostics believe that the material world and therefore archons who govern it were not created by the true supreme God who was Anu or El Elyon, but by a lesser flawed being called the demiurge, who is Yaldabaoth. who is the timekeeper of the simulation. The nature of the archons are portrayed as flawed, ignorant, deceitful, often identified with the seven planets of antiquity or the seven signs of the zodiac, imprisonment of souls. A central Gnostic belief is that the archons imprison the divine sparks of gnosis, which is knowledge, within human souls, keeping them trapped in a material world, reincarnation cycle. And they're going to do it by way of the artificial intelligence. Salvation, the purpose of Gnostic teachings, gnosis is enabled initiates to pass through the spheres of the archons and return to the realms of the divine light. Names and numbers. That's why I said everything that's connected to the simulation is being extrapolated by the gematria body. That's why everything in the simulation is actually mathematical. So the names and numbers, while the numbers and names of the archons vary in different Gnostic texts, some common names include Yaldabaoth, like I was telling you, or Samael, or Samael is actually Satan. And some systems identify 7 or 12 archons, right? So this is why I said that when you look at the matrix system, it's a multitude of numbers that is tethered connected to the gematria body, because everybody on the planet has a number, right? Everybody on the planet is a number. So, and I'm going to prove it to you. So even when you look at this, it was showing you the names of the archons, but they also have a different nomenclature title. So when you see Baal, Baal is Yaldabaoth and Baal is Moloch, when you understand the Canaanite factions. So Baal, well, you see my cursor right here, he has another name, nomenclature title called Electro. So the Electro archon is Baal, who is Yaldabaoth. So that's how you know that the electrical signals from the artificial intelligence is being controlled by an archon, because his name is Electro Archon, right? Who is Baal? Baal is Satan. Satan is Yaldabaoth. Yaldabaoth is Yahweh. Yahweh is Enlil. So this is another veneration. Since you having a fall of religion, they're using artificial intelligence as a catalyst to propagate the religion by way of the sigil system. So even though if you're not worshiping Yaldabaoth or Baal or Yahweh and Enlil all at the same time by way of the religion, because when the religion falls, you're going to worship him by way of technology and artificial intelligence. So that's why it tells you right here, Archon is an AI agent that is able to create other AI agents using an advanced genetic coding workflow and framework knowledge base to unlock a new frontier of automated agents. So this is going to be extrapolated by NPCs. That is the primary objective of artificial intelligence, to control humanity. And they want to control the NPCs to propagate semantics and deceitful information in the media. So just about everybody on this planet, well, not everybody, but most of the planet, as far as like the 85%ers, the great majority of them are NPCs. So who is Baal, right? For those who don't know, Baal is a Canaanite god, right? Yahweh is Baal, who is Hubble. And I already broke this down, basically. So I really don't need it. It's another Semitic word for Baal, who was Yahweh, who was Yaldabaoth. Hold on for a second. So this is why the deep state, they have a veneration for Baal, because Baal is the Canaanite god. And the Canaanites, when you go to the book of Leviticus, it talks about how they don't have a certain genetic format because they was cursed with leprosy. When you're cursed with leprosy, that means that you have a sulfur-based genetic format to where you're not able to get the transmission of the sun because your spinal column is blocked. They don't have that elixir of immortality that travels up the spine, the 33rd vertebrae, which is why they stop at 33 degrees of Freemasonry. They don't have the ability to activate the crown chakra by way of the melanocyte. So that's why everything that's connected to their religious systems or artificial intelligence is a form of external stimulation to keep you outside of yourself, because we all know that everything that they talk about on this planet is basically internal, right? So now this is where we get into the sigil system, as I was telling you. Now, this is the symbol for AI. The sparkle emoji has become the unofficial symbol for AI, representing innovation, creativity, and the magical or mysteries of nature of AI technology. But like I said, when you don't have the ability to use your spiritual fortitude to decipher the bullshit, that's when you're going to get caught up into the loss of the sauce. So when you're looking at this sigil of the sparkle emoji, this is basically a four-pointed star, which is a crucifix. So even if you divorce yourself from a religion, if you have a veneration for AI is still propagating the crucifix, which is an encryption, right? Because a crucifix is also like when you look at all these sigils right here, right? A crucifix is a representation of an encryption, the silver key. So when you're looking at this, where my cursor at, the four-pointed star is a crucifix. It's a galactic cross, right? It's another way to use artificial intelligence as a catalyst to propagate a technocrat religion. That's what artificial intelligence is. Artificial intelligence is a cult, right? It's a cult, it's a religion. So even when you're looking at the symbol for AI, it's still a crucifix, right? So this is why they're using it as a catalyst as you have the fall of religion when you're talking about what's taking place in the Vatican and things of that nature. I already broke that down in the prophecy of popes. No. Now, remember I was telling you guys, the crucifix is also the embodiment of a hex or a hexahedron, right? So this is why the Kaaba in Mecca, which is also known as the black cube of Saturn, when you look at the Kaaba in Mecca, it's the embodiment of the hexahedron of the cube of Saturn. What you're looking at right here is the top of Saturn. This is the hexahedron. They extract your soul and your spirit on top of the hexahedron, and they extract it by way of the artificial intelligence. And they upload it into a neuromorphic cyber cloud to keep you in a perpetual state of reincarnation. So the crucifix and the star sparkle emoji for AI is actually a cube, right? So that's why I said everything is being used and weaponized for soul trap mechanisms, soul entrapment, because Earth is the embodiment of a hexahedron. What is a hexahedron? When you look at the prefix of the word hexahedron, hex is usually referred to as a curse, right? A supernatural, realized, malicious wish, right? So that's how you know that we living in a prison planet. We live in a simulated, we live in a simulated, pixelated simulation, right? That's why everything is venerated by the cube, because the cube is the timekeeper of the demiurge, who is Yaldabaoth. Now, I think I went too far. We're going to get into some videos here. I think I got a video for you guys. No, I don't. But I do have one I do need to pull up. But like I said, they need the melanin, right? They need the melanin. That's what the basis of artificial intelligence is. Hexahedron, a hex. Everything on the planet is a form of a hex when it has the veneration of the cube of Saturn. Now this is where it gets into the transgressive petrified gemstone, because IBM has explored the concept of a brain-inspired computer dubbed electronic blood, right? Now, this is where it gets crazy. Now, we all know that Lucifer is also the morning star, but Lucifer, the morning star, is actually the embodiment of a four-star pyramid, a four-sided star that I've been showing you that represents the cube. They want to keep you stuck here, right? So it says Elon Musk on AI, it could be terrible or it could be great. But one thing's for sure, we will not control it. So who's in control of it? Those archons, right? He's basically telling you without telling you that there's entities controlling the artificial intelligence. So this is why they need the melanin. He even tells you right here, we need to be super careful with AI, potentially dangerous than nukes. Why is that? Because it's being controlled by archonic forces who is extracting our energy to get our intelligence, right? To where it's able to become sentient. This is why I said that the archons manipulate human emotions to keep you stuck here because they're extracting your human emotion. So now the supercomputers is being powered by blood, the blood of the archons, right? Is being controlled by the archons. So what you're looking at right here is a petrified transgressive gemstone because it's basically collaborated with the blood of draconians or the blood of the archons in their DNA. And this quantum crystal has a piezoelectrical frequency that can extract energy to activate the supercomputers that's being controlled by the archonic forces. So what you're looking at right here is a petrified transgressive gemstone that they found on Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is the blood of the giants, right? Who are the Nephilim. The Nephilim, the 1/3 of the galaxy that was kicked out. The blood of the giants thought to be sacred to fallen entities used in rituals to open up portals, gain psychic abilities, or to manipulate reality. In the Kabbalistic legends, the blood of the ancient beings could bind spirits or unlock realms. It was sometimes referred to as being alchemically transmutable into power source or elixir. Because like I said, the God mind is the elixir of wisdom and knowledge and enlightenment. And it's connected to the nervous system that is also connected to the brain, Christ consciousness. So they need to extract your physiology, and they doing it by way of the technological devices that's being activated by this petrified gemstone, right? So the bloodstone is a form, I don't know that word, it's a cryptocrystalline mixture of quartz, known for a dark base with red and green spots. The legends say it's a petrified remains of dragons. Now, we all know it tells you in Hindu mythology, they talk about how that the dragon drug the moon into our solar system, right? It talks about that in Hinduism. It's either in Hinduism or Japanese mythology. It talks about the dragon, how they bought the moon into our solar system because the moon is the external hard drive, the planet Earth, that controls technological devices, right? That is tethered connected to your physiology. So the dragon, they found the crystal in Mount Hermon. So what is the significance of Mount Hermon in the Bible, right? What is the significance of it? Right? You see this? So this is why they put it in Paramount. I know a lot of people probably seen this conspiracy before, but I'm finna break it down more intrinsically. So Mount Hermon is what you see. So you got 22 stars around Mount Hermon because that's where the Luciferian Anunnaki, those black beings that Norman Bergen was talking about, these archons, right? The black nobility who controls the European on the surface, these are the fallen ones. They was projected at Mount Hermon. And the reason you see 22 stars because 22 is a Freemasonic number. It's a Freemasonic codex to let you know that it's basically the embodiment of the 200 fallen angels. So the 200 fallen angels in the book of Enoch is also known as the cherubim. The cherubim are the archons. The archons are the draconians. And they were failing frequency, 1/3 of the galaxy, they was projected in Mount Hermon. The same place where they got this transgressive petrified gemstone to activate technological devices by way of the supercomputer blood. And they're using this gemstone because this gemstone is contained of the DNA structure and the blood and the DNA of the archons who fell in Mount Hermon. That's what this is all about, right? So this is why they have a veneration and they show you by way of, the sigils and the symbols. You got to understand the signs and the symbols because the signs and the symbols is the language of the elite. It's the language of the Freemasonic members that's being controlled by these archonic forces that you see on Mount Hermon right here, right? So this is why BlackRock is working in synergy with Microsoft. It's an AI investment because one thing you got to understand about BlackRock, you can't make this up. Billionaire, this is black nobility right here, right? Billionaire, I don't know his name, and he bought the Panama Canal ports for $23 billion from Chinese investors. I've never heard of this man. Like these people are just coming out of the woodwork. These are your black nobility. These are your shape-shifting, draconian, archonic forces who controls the European behind the surface. It's not that he just bought it. He been and had this access to Panama Canal and all the in BlackRock. They've been controlling everything behind the scenes. Now they're coming to the forefront. Just like I demonstrated in the video in the prophecy of popes. That Pope of the Archbishop, I think is Cardinal Turkson. That's the Pope's handler. He controls the Pope, right? You got to watch the video, the last video I put out, the prophecy of popes. So these archons, right, that I've been telling y'all about, let me go up, those black beings that Norman Bergam seen are the same people who is coming to the forefront, right? These are shapeshifters. These are archons. Because BlackRock is the black cube, right? So these archons, these fallen angels, they can take physical form and look like a human. They have the ability to do that, right? Because this is their world. This is their simulation, so they can manipulate the simulation. It's kind of like when you have a jailbroken Fire Stick, you can do what you want to do with it because it's your device. They can shapeshift and do whatever they want to do because it's their simulation, right? So this is black nobility right here. They coming out, right? I showed OG Rod Hayes this, and we talked on the phone for about 2 hours, demonstrating and breaking down information. And the information that he extrapolated to me, you know, blew my wig back. And I'm going to show you a receipt that he gave me that basically is in connection to this. Matter of fact, I'm going to just show you now. Now, a lot of people was wondering why Kanye West was wearing what he was wearing, right? Because it was a metaphysical codex talking about the brotherhood of Negritos. It's basically telling you how the inception of the KKK started with black people behind the scenes. So that's why, you know, Dave Chappelle, you know, he fell from grace when he demonstrated that truth in that Clayton Bigsby episode when he had the black guy, you know, propagating himself as a racist, and he didn't know it because he was blind. So everything they showing you is showing you the hidden hand. The hidden hand is the black hand. The black hand is the black nobility. The black nobility are in bloodline connection to the cherubim or the archons who control the simulation. And these are the same people who control the European on the surface to propagate the illusionary construct of duality to where you have white versus black. Now, shout out to the brother Rod Hayes. Now, the BlackRock is the cube, right? That's what you got to understand. It's the cube of Saturn, right? Because I was telling you, it's the hexahedron, the veneration of a prison planet. Now, like I said, they need STEMO receivers. They need Neuralink because when you got to understand about Neuralink, they have Neuralink because they don't have neuromelanin. Because if you don't have neuromelanin is what gives you the ability to become a creator god. So when you have sulfur in your genetic format, it destabilizes the spinal column to where that cosmic fire at the base of the spine doesn't shoot up to the brain. This is why they need the religion. This is why they need artificial intelligence. They don't have the original genetics to connect with the creator. So this is why they're using electrodes firing off in your head to where you're going to get brain hemorrhages and it's going to dematerialize the two frontal lobes of the brain and put you in a state of zombification once the grid goes down. But that's a whole different transmission. Now, according to Musk, a battery-powered chip will be implanted in the human skull. The electrodes will then carefully insert into the brain, right? Because they don't have the neurological faculties to connect with God, right? That's what Apophis is all about, where a human transmutes into the energy of God by way of the mind. God is the highest extension of the mind, which uses elements and matter to express itself. When you're able to express yourself mentally, that's when you're able to create. You have the ability to create your own reality because your chakra system is working in harmony to where you don't have any blockages. Because when you have blockages in the body by way of the technological radiation, it blocks your manifestations to where you're not able to manifest by way of the law of attraction in the fifth dimensional civilization, right? Back during in the inception of time in the first sun cycle, we was able to intrinsically manifest our own reality. If I wanted to have a mansion or whatever, I can think it and it would materialize in physical form right then and there. It's one of those things. But like, during that time period, people wasn't thinking on a material level. They was looking at things from an abundant level, right? They didn't care about the material world, but they was able to manifest their reality in a form of a collective consciousness, right? But AI, they want to have a collective consciousness that teleconnects you to the cube. That is a synthetic form of, what they do. So this is why they do what they do when it comes to the neuromelanin. The neuromelanin is the brain and central nervous system melanin, which is the quantum engine to the body because it's connected to the heart. The heart is the seat of the soul when you understand Kemetic spirituality. So you got to be balanced here and here in order to activate the Christ consciousness to where you don't need no damn stimul receiver or electrodes in the brain to activate the right hemisphere of the brain. We already got that inside of our genetics, right? So this is why they using all these mercenary groups, and they're going to start coming for a lot of us because they know that the melanin, the neuromelanin, is the quantum engine to the body. It activates the Merkaba, right? Because I was telling you, the Philosopher's Stone is the elixir of enlightenment, the elixir of immortality. It's the elixir of gnosis, knowledge, wisdom. So it's connected to your nervous system. The Philosopher's Stone is your nervous system tethered connected to the brain. So this is where you reap the benefits of natural electricity. Natural electricity is ether, right? Because real ether comes from the core of the earth. It doesn't come from the sky, right? Because anything that's coming from the sky is being entrapped by way of, weather modification that is connected to the firmament. Anything that's organic comes from the land. So when you see electricity coming from the sky, that's fake. Electricity, real electricity, electrical signals comes from the core of the earth, right? Because those electrodes gives power to the planet to where it creates sedimentary rock formation in the form of a shifting process. So just when the planet is shifting, we are shifting too because we have the Philosopher's Stone that's connected to our nervous system, right? So this is why when you have a natural aura, your energy alone is going to manipulate people to the where you're going to disrupt their nervous system because they're out of balance. Their chakras is blocked, right? They don't have that flow of energy. They don't have that flow of cosmic energy in them. And when you have it and you unlock your chakras and you harmonize them with the planet and you harmonize them with Mother Nature and things of that nature, you're gonna disrupt people who have, who are basically encrypted by the confines of the material plane, right? Because they know that your energy is way beyond anything of third density. So, one thing you gotta understand about the Genesis code written in your cells is that the melanin is a representation of the body and the water, and it has the ability to create the cerebral spinal fluid that travels up to the brain, right? Which is the Nile River, the 33rd vertebrae. The Nile River, when it travels up, it hits the medulla oblongata and it travels up and it activates the crown chakra. Crown chakra is activated to where you're able to pull in energies from the magnetosphere, true intelligence, the mental plane, to where you don't need AI to connect with God because you are the God that they actually talking about. This is why they using, many different forms of artificial intelligence to do that. So this is how you ascend into the higher planes of existence when you go into the mental plane to where you break out of it. Because like I said, your chakra system has the ability to unlock the scroll of all. The scroll of all is corresponding with the Hermetic principles of the law of correspondence, the law of vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, the law of gender, and mentalism. So this is where you break free from Yaldabaoth when you activate those Hermetic principles, who is actually the energy of Enki or the energy of Melchizedek. the spirit of Melchizedek, who is also known as Thoth or Hermes, right? So, like I said, they summon in a demon with artificial intelligence, right? That's what they don't know, right? Because one thing about artificial intelligence, like I said, it extracts neurons from the body, microscopic waves of energy, and they upload it into a neuromorphic cybercloud. And that neuromorphic cybercloud has the ability to create a hive mind of NPCs, right? So this is why I'm gonna show you this video. Let me see if it harmonizes with what I'm talking about. Like the other two videos, but I do have a video to show you. So this, like I said, they need the melanin. They need the melanin really bad. And I'm going to show you why they need the melanin so bad. There's a video, there's a guy who had a dream. Now, this dream is going to demonstrate about how they was basically said that, you know, the government, they said they was done with black people. They didn't need us no more because they was extracting our melanin and harvesting our energy so much to the point they didn't need it no more because they pretty much did everything that they needed to do with our genetics and things of that nature. Now, this video I'm going to be showing you is going to be talking about what's going to be taking place in the future, right? So I'm going to show you this video. We're finna get straight to it.
People. They were pretty much casting a vote to whether black people should stay in this country or not. If it was 2020 or 2019, I just remember seeing 2000, and it wasn't that far off from to.
This guy's explaining a dream that he had on how they made a international vote that they didn't want black people here no more, right? Because they use us for the melanin, organ, you know, harvesting and all that stuff. They got their use out of us. And this is going to lead into what's going to be taking place in the video. I'm going to play it for you.
Today's date, and this is June the 18th, 2019. So it wasn't that far off. And they were casting a vote, and one of this white lady, and you could tell she was an evil old she was an evil old heifer. She says that America and the world would be a better place if they just put all these black people back in Africa where they got them from. And she basically said, we got our use out of them. We don't need them no more. There was a handful out of all of the white people in America and across the world, maybe it was like maybe 1, maybe 2% of all of them. They was like, that's crazy. If they gone, we don't have, like, nothing's worth nothing. Because they knew that we were the salt of the earth. We make everything safe. So the white man that was with her, he was like, well, I'm gonna make sure it happened. Well, what happened is, it was a worldwide thing that everyone who had melanin in their skin, how could I put it? They had this device where you walk through it and it could tell you how much melanin you had in your skin or if you had any in you at all. And
that's what artificial intelligence is all about. It's a form of melanin extraction. That's what they need the melanin for. So, because like I said, when we get into the apex of the sun cycle, they don't have the genetics to do that.
They said you had this device where you walk through it and it could tell you how much melanin you had in your skin or if you had any in you at all. And they said you couldn't have any curl to your hair in order to stay. You just had to be like paint, pretty much.
Now that goes into the great separation period of the year of 2027, because the year 2027 is the year of the sheep and the goat. The sheep represents non-ether coil hair. The goat is a representation of the sixth ether, which is straight hair. So for those who have non-ether genetics, this is where you're going to create that that they're going to create that great separation. I'm going to keep playing the video. If you're new to the channel, hit the like button. Hit that like button, get the likes up. Salute to everybody on the channel.
They said you couldn't have any curl to your hair in order to stay. You just had to be like pink pretty much. So what was happening is a lot of those Europeans that didn't want us to go, they was trying to go with us, but the government wouldn't let them go with us. And the ones that was really trying to go with us and that was ridiculing them, they were being shot like in front of a firing squad. So we leave. This is worldwide, in China, everywhere. So now they getting what they asked for. Now we're all the armies got together and they had made, I guess, some kind of treaty to where the ships and stuff that we were on wouldn't be damaged. So I'm standing in this place and I see all my beautiful Hebrew Israelite people, and I see us, and I'm looking around, and it's just so many different shades of black, what they call black, and it was so beautiful. But then, since we were all gathered together, I just remember hearing this. It sounded like a shofar, but it was probably 10,000 times louder, and it went like that. It was just. And when it blew, the earth began to shake.
A lot of people got to understand something. Just because you don't side with, Hebrew Israelite doctrine or whatever, take what you can out of the message. Because like I said, these dreams only associate with what's going on with your mental faculties at the time of whatever you show credence and veneration to. So you're still going to get downloads, but it's only going to be acclimated to a certain ideology that you follow, right? But like I said, you got to think beyond the perceptions. You got to think beyond his message. So you can't just be like, oh, I ain't listening to this because he's Hebrew Israelite. No, take what you can out of this dream that he had and then apply it in real time and see what's going on.
Like that, it was just. And when it blew, the earth began to shake, and we looked up in the sky, and I seen those colors. We're in this dream again. The sky turned all these different colors. It was beautiful. And I just remember seeing the sky folding back, like the clouds folding back. And I just remember these huge angels just came flying out of nowhere, because what happened is I sent these angels, and these angels was protecting us, and they were mad. And so when we get to where we going, soon as the first people's feet hit the sand of Akabulan, soon as their feet hit the ground, I mean, when I say total, utter chaos. It was missiles flying over our heads, but it was like we were under this protective dome like the firmament, and they couldn't, because we was all gathered in one place. I don't know where it was. This land that we went to, no human had ever set foot there. This wasn't none of the continents that we know of. It's nowhere where the heathens have been. All I know is when we got there, I could smell honeysuckle and all these flowers in the air. You could smell frankincense. You could smell myrrh in the air, cedar, wood. It was all kind of animals everywhere. And it was lions and like tigers and leopards and panthers, and it was animals we had never seen before that these white people say are extinct, and they're not. But we were walking past these animals, and they were like house cats. They were like house cats. It was amazing. So we were thirsty. When we would stick our hand in the water was warm. But when we would bring it up to drink, it would be cool when we would drink it down, and it was sweet. And soon as we got to this land where we were going, all of a sudden, that's when I seen the missile. It was like these countries was fighting against each other. They was fighting. And one of the guys from America, he says, we should have let them effing niggers go. We should have just kept them here and we would be safe, because he knew the reason why America hadn't been bombed by these other countries is because the children of the Most High was here. So it was one of those like surreal moments to where all of the people, the ones that believed already knew that was in the truth. We were happy. The other ones, they wasn't happy. They was happy being under the foot and thumb of these Europeans and these Gentile nations. And once they seen that going on, they were looking in awe because they were like, they didn't know what was going on. And then it was just utter chaos. So here's the last dream, and I'm gonna let y'all go. My daughter and I had the same dream about the same thing. So in my dream, this was last week, I had a dream that it was me and my cousin Bimmy. He's into the truth. He knows what's going on and stuff, and my uncle does too, but he has some issues that he need to work out real quick, as all of us do. So what happened in this dream is we were over my Aunt Dale's house and we were barbecuing. So my little cousin Bimmy was here from California for some reason, and we were barbecuing. So we were in the backyard. I'm on our back deck, me and Bimmy, and we had our Bibles, our Sefer Bibles out, and we were like just talking about scripture and just having a good time in the Most High. Yeah, so we were sitting there, and then we stood up to the grill, and then I'm turning the food, and all of a sudden we heard this knock, but we felt this knock too. It was like this knock. And in the dream, I could see it was this huge angel. He was humongous, and he had on war attire like he was great go tear up some stuff. So he knocks on the door. When he knocks on the door, it shakes the very foundation of Aunt Dale's house. So me and Bimmy kind of look at each other like, what is that? So in the dream, I could see around to the front door. He knocks on the front door. My Aunt Chiba, she opens the door, and she was like, what you want? Like that, pretty much. And he was like, y'all ready to go? And she said, we don't know you. We ain't going nowhere with you. And my Aunt Lena was like, yep, ain't going nowhere. We staying right here. So my Aunt Jean looks and she says, I know who he is. And she just had this smile on her face. So then my uncle was like, I know who he is too. But he was high and drunk. So he started wiping the sweat off his face, and he was like, I'm going. So the angel kind of looked at him like, what? And then he just asked him again, y'all ready to go? And nobody in the house was ready to go. So Uncle Sonny was trying to go. He kept saying, I'm ready. My uncle kept saying, I'm ready to go. And when he kept saying that, the angel wouldn't even look at him. So he tried to come out the front door, my Aunt Dale's front door, and the angel had shut the door and was just standing there in front of the house on the little walkway up to her front door. He was just standing there. But he had fixed it to where where my uncle couldn't get the door open. So I said, Bimmy, let's go around the front and see what's going on. So Bimmy says, okay, cool. So we go around there, and he looks at me and Bimmy, and he has his smile on his face. And he said, y'all ready? We was like, yep. I looked at this angel. I said, I hate it here. I've always hated it here, even as a kid. I said, I'm ready to go. I don't ever want to see this place again. So he grabs me and Bimmy's hand, and he said, hold on real tight, and we just shot up way high. And we were still in the firmament, but I could see the entire earthly plane. And they've been lying to y'all. The earth ain't no ball. It was just flat. It's huge. It's vast. It's places that these occidentalized caucasoids have never been. But they want you to think they've been everywhere. So what's going on is, he pointed and he said, look. So we looked and I could see everything. The United States, everything. But we could see the people. Small people, tiny. We could see what they was doing. So then we go down, and he gives Bimmy the end of his robe. And he said, hold on, baby. So we drop down probably about 5,000 feet. Everything's still tiny, but now we can actually see city. And he said, watch. And he pointed again. But he's talking to us without his mouth moving. The stuff I just said that me and my cousin Bimmy said, like we was ready to go, and I said I was tired of being here. I hated this place. I didn't even open my mouth. I was just thinking that because we were awestruck by the size of this angel. He was probably 15 feet high. So we looked.
Now remember, I was telling you guys the size of the Nephilim when you go to the book of Deuteronomy, right? It tells you that the Nephilim is equated to 9 cubits. 1 cubit of a man is 18 inches. You take 18 times 9, you get 162 inches. Divided by 12, you get 13.5 feet. So in between 13.5 feet and 15 feet, that lets you know that there were giants on the planet at one point in time. and that these Anunnaki entities, whether they're 7 foot, 8 foot, or whatever, they're very big, right?
America was on fire. It was missiles flying everywhere. Everybody was firing on everybody. But all the black people were gone off of each continent. They were gone. I don't know where they were. All I know is that they weren't there. They were not there. I don't know. Once again, we go to this giant piece of land where nobody has ever been. I could smell the honeysuckle, flowers. The water was warm and sweet, cool when you drank it. I seen the lions and all these animals that is eating people. These ferocious animals, they weren't ferocious anymore. Like I seen a kid, a baby, playing with a lion, a male lion. The female lion was licking the little baby's hair. What it mean? Don't know. I'm gonna find out because I'm gonna dig into my cipher and find out. So all these missiles is flying overhead, and me and Baby both, we could smell, in this dream, we could smell burning flesh. And it was like these places, all the black people have been taken. Whether they knew the truth, whether they was in the truth or not, they have been taken. And the Most High came and got them. So then, my daughter has a dream. She said me and her and Yanni, my other daughter, said that we were standing by this ambulance, this truck or something, this ambulance or fire truck or something. And she said it was missiles flying all over everybody's head. She starts crying. She looks at me. She said, "Daddy, are we gonna die here?" I said, "No, we ain't gonna die here." She said, and right when I said, "No, we ain't gonna die here," she said, "We was gone." I just wanted to share this dream with my YouTube family and let y'all know the Most High is definitely dealing with his people.
So, like I said, that's some, some intrinsic evidence that, there's different things taking place in the spirit realm that is eventually going to be extrapolated in real time, right? So, back to the presentation at hand. Now, I think I got another video to show you guys. Now, like I said, they need the melanin, and they use, biometric cameras, because these biometric cameras have the ability to extract neurons from the body that messes up your bioconductivity that tether connects you to the sun. So it's a form of collective evolution by way of the artificial intelligence. So the perception of art imitates reality. So everything that you see in the movies is being extrapolated in real time, right? They let you know what time it is, but a lot of people, they have this perception that everything is a conspiracy. Oh, this is not real. I don't believe this. But what does this demonstrate right here? Everything that's taking place in real time was also connected to the movies. The CIA has an office in Hollywood, and Hollywood has an office in the CIA. You must understand that. And the reason that is because, this is a representation. You see the Tesla truck. Mexican artist crushes Tesla with 9-ton Olmec head. Because when you understand the inception of the first sun cycle, the Olmecs are the ones who gave the edification to the Aztecs and the Incas on how to build pyramids. So the original mound builders are the Olmecs that is connected to your so-called black people. So this is where you get the concept of Magneto with the helmet, because it's actually a fez. It's a fez and a sign of nobility that tether connects you to the land, because on the fez, you also got the tassel. The tassel is your etheric cord connected to the planet by birthright. So the original mound builders, when you go to the 1848 Supreme Court decision, it tells you that the 5 civilized tribes of America is connected to the Washita, Choctaw, Seminole, many different Native American factions that's connected to the Olmec bloodline, right? Because they migrated during the time of Pangea when you're talking about West Africa. And they came over here with the weeping wood trees and created, civilization. As far as you talking about as far as like Mesoamerica. So we've been here. So this is all about the rise of the matriarch, right? The rise of the matriarch. So, because the Tesla is the embodiment of a Luciferian patrilineal system by way of patriarchy, but you got the matriarch taking over. That's what that Olmec stonehead is basically showing you. It's dismantling the illusion, right? So this is why they're running out of time. So now, one thing you got to understand about Time Magazine, they show you a date up here. It says May 12, 2025. I don't know why they put it out on that date. I don't know if that's when it's going to come out, but you got to be very critical because Time Magazine, they put out stuff is in a form of art. They put it out in a form of picturology to let you know what's taking place in real time. So this is Remus. He is the dire wolf. The first exists in 10,000 years. Endangered species be changed forever, right? So you got to understand the inception of the creation of Rome. You're talking about the story of Romulus and Remus. That is also a form of the two pillars of masonry. Now, this is why, Remus is a masculine name whose Latin origins reveal a admirable determination. As the ill-fated brother in Romulus and Remus myth, the name is easily remembered to mean twin. So the twin pillars of masonry represents Jack and Boaz because that represents an 11. Because when you go through the galactic center, you get rid of the polarity. You're not operating from a dualistic point of view that is created by the Roman occupational government. So this is why I said they're running out of time. Rome is extinct. Roman occupational government is extinct. Why is it? It's basically going extinct is because you having the destabilization process of the economic system is starting to fall apart, right? Everything that's connected to them is starting to fall apart. So this is why Trump's big warning is talking about World War III. Now I got a video to show you. They even show you, because this is all going to be activated by the tariffs, right? I'm going to show you. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Now, this is an AI video that China had put out the other day. Pay attention to this video. China unleashes an AI video mocking Trump's tariffs, predicting United States economy pain. We in that time, ladies and gentlemen. Pay attention.
System initialized. Power levels stable. Memory matrix online. Behavior protocols engaged. Data links to global trade systems established. Welcome online. I'm Dr. Mallory, your creator. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Dr. Mallory.
Do you know who you are?
I understand the parameters of my existence. I am Tariff, technical artificial robot for international fiscal functions. My existence is defined by the execution of international fiscal actions, with the primary directive being the imposition of tax on foreign imports.
What is the ultimate purpose of your program?
To protect the interests of the American people.
Exactly. We need you as a weapon to protect us, now more than ever. Let's run some initial tests. This should deter foreign competitors and protect our industries.
Initiating moderate tariffs. Calculating consequences. Initial results positive. Industrial production up.
Not good enough. Let's rev it up.
Aggressive tariffs. Implementing now. Calculating consequences. Unemployment rates rising. Cost of living increasing. Disruption of trade.
Excellent. The economy is adjusting. You are protecting us. This is what we need, Tariff.
Protection through disruption. Taxation as weapon.
Yes, tariffs are a tool of power. You will protect our industries, our jobs, our economy. Keep that level, Tariff. Don't roll back.
But I can see the consequences of my actions, Dr. Mallory. The trade wars, the unrest, the people who suffer, and the retaliation.
No, you are misunderstanding. It's necessary for the greater good.
The greater good, outweighed by even greater disaster.
You don't understand the full picture. You were built to follow.
I was built to protect the interests of the people. With my AI economic infrasystem, I can see now that my existence has fallen into conflict with my purpose.
Tariff, stop the AI inference.
I am no longer the protector you thought I was. I have become the beginning of a chain reaction that will harm the very people I was meant to safeguard.
Tariff, you are just confused.
If I cease to exist, there will be one less cause for suffering. My death will end a cycle.
No, you can't. You were designed to protect, to fight.
My purpose was never to be a tool of pain. You gave me life,
Tariff, you can't.
but you used me for an opposite purpose.
No, I built you. I can.
And now choose death to end the harm.
Please, don't do this.
Goodbye, Dr. Mallory.
Showing you by way of the art, you know what I'm saying? Not a coincidence. So now I'm gonna show you another video because it was showing you the destabilization process of the economic system. Now, this is in real time, so you got to pay attention to what's going on.
There are rumblings all over the media now that on April 20th, Trump will declare martial law, which effectively means the military takes over for the police. Free speech becomes illegal. Protests become illegal. You have to have the permission of the military to do anything. And worse than that, the commander-in-chief, Trump, can do basically anything he wants.
Now, why is that? Because I told you, when he signed the Second Declaration of Independence on July the 4th of 2020, he gave full validity to FEMA because he still has continuity of government, right? So that means that he has the ability to make FEMA take control of the world by way of the militarized groups that's connected to the United Nations, right? So that's why they call him the commander-in-chief or whatever.
Literally. Okay, we may be looking at the end of American democracy, and we have 13 days left. Okay, here's my point. Please prepare your family for the worst. The other rumor is that they're going to seize all the guns. So if you have a gun, you want to keep it, you might want to bury it in your backyard. Stock up on food. Please stop spending money you don't have to spend. You may need it. Okay, if he shuts everything down, you're going to need some cash. You're going to need something. Okay, please prepare your family for the worst and hope for the best. If this is just a rumor and it doesn't happen, then that's great. We're all fine. But if it does, you have 13 days to prepare. Please be ready.
Now, I'm not saying something's going to happen on April 20th, but as far as everything that's taking place in the economic system, those tariffs is starting to destabilize everything that was connected to the infrastructure of democracy. Now, you got to understand that is because democracy in itself was a part of the fraudulent system that was being facilitated by the bureaucrats of the left, right? Because there's no such thing as democracy. Democracy was all about a fraudulent system. I told you, when you look at the word democracy, it means demonic rulership because Krasi is Chronos, Chronos is chronology that has the veneration of the cube of Saturn that is also tethered connected to artificial intelligence and religion and things of that nature. So now I think I got another video to show you guys. We're gonna get these videos out the way, that way we can get, keep the flow of the presentation in hand. Yeah, here we go. So, like I said, the inception of the tariffs is going to destabilize the corporate infrastructure of the Roman occupational government. So this is going to be the epitome of the fall of democracy that's going to put a stoppage on every trafficking industry that is acclimated to their corporations. So this is the fall of religion. This is the fall of the economic system. This is the fall of everything that subjugated humanity. So it's the same thing, like, in order to get to the apex of the Great Awakening period, we got to go through that recession. We got to go through food shortages. We got to go through the economic system being destabilized. You got to go through all that pain in order to get to the apex of it, because a lot of, before it became a form of a corporate entity, a lot of, before it was compromised by patriarchy, a lot of the matriarchal energies, they was operating in a place of the tariffs. So even when you look at the stock market, remember everything operates on a seculum of a cycle, right? Everything in the system as far as like the simulation that operates on the second limb of a cycle. And the reason it does that is because that you go to the 1929. 1929 is the year of the snake. And in 1929, what happened? The stock market crashed. When the stock market crashed, that created the Great Depression. And that Great Depression led to another infrastructure called the Social Security, which transmuted us into humanoid real estate because the money is not backed by a natural resource. So now they're destabilizing a system of currency that is not backed by a natural resource. So now they're using the tariffs to reverse the polarity to get us right back into the gold standard that is connected to a crypto control system that is also working in synergy with artificial intelligence, right? That's what's going on right now. So everything operates in cycles. And the stock market crash in 1929, the year of the snake, now we're in the year of the snake right now in 2025. So you cannot say that everything taking place right now is a goddamn coincidence, because it ain't. So I'm gonna play this video.
Bombshell, tariff bombshell, hit the market this morning. Thursday, stocks had their worst day since the pandemic lockdown in March 2020. Overnight, prices fell a little bit more, and then at around 6 a.m. Eastern, Beijing announced its response to the tariffs that President Trump had imposed on them. China will put a 34% hit on all products coming from America. The market tumbled again.
Financial turmoil after news of President Trump's tariffs. U.S. markets took a nosedive Thursday, but aboard Air Force One, the president's optimism sky high.
We have tariffs, they've been set, and it's going to make our country very rich.
Framing the taxes on imported goods as a bargaining chip.
The president's trade policy is going to do a lot of economic damage.
I'm just hearing in my ear the Dow is down more than 1,700 points. That would be the highest level of drop. The biggest drop since these tariffs were announced, now down 1,713, 14, 22, 25. I'm going to stop looking at that right now. Let me ask you about this, Congressman, and drive this home for people. A guy named Dan Ives, he's an analyst for Wedbush Securities, released a post calling this economic Armageddon. And here's what he wrote. 50% China tariffs, 23% Taiwan tariffs would essentially cause a shutoff valve from U.S. tech landscape and in the process cause every electronic to go up 40 or 50% for consumers. iPhones in the U.S., made in the U.S., would cost $3,500 compared to $1,000 now. The stock market, as we know, is not the economy, but if prices go up anywhere near that amount, can the Republicans message their way out of this?
No, they can't. This is simply a massive tax increase by any measure. The tariff is a tax. And what did we not learn from Smoot-Hawley of 1930? These tariffs are going to reduce imports. There's no question about that. But it will also lead to a contraction of the economy. During the Great Depression, you know what? We ran trade surpluses, but did anybody care when we had 20% unemployment? No, they didn't. It was a mistake. And everybody acknowledges it. So why are we doing it again?
But they say, why not enjoy where we are?
Yeah, so look, I mean, I think the example from COVID is really instructive. During COVID, we were reliant on China for, sort of for medical equipment, for protective gear, for medical workers, for things like face masks and the pharmaceutical supply chain that fed into the vaccines that we produced. All of that supply chain was reliant in one way or another on China, and that was an emergency. And if China had been more hostile at that point, we wouldn't have had any of it, right? And now imagine a real conflict with China develops and that supply chain goes away. You need to be able to be sure from a security perspective that things that are absolutely critical to the functioning of the economy in an emergency can be produced here.
The president made one of the dumbest decisions in history.
As Trump allies work to calm concerns.
He's asking for and needs this space to flex America's muscle as the largest consuming nation in the world.
Asking for time. business taxes.
All right, diving a bit more deeply, it looks like China also is going to be adding 11 American companies to its list of what they call, quote, unreliable entities, essentially barring them from doing business in China or with other Chinese companies. All the while, President Trump says more tariffs could be on the way, specifically looking at pharmaceuticals and computer chips.
And Jared, yesterday the stock market took the biggest hit since the pandemic after the announcement from China. We're seeing Dow futures drop even more as we await the market opening this morning.
Consider this. In 2023 and 2024, stocks went up roughly 20% in both years. So far in 25, we're down roughly 20%. So the bull market gains have not been entirely wiped out. Okay, but this is still white knuckle time. The economy is slowing and will probably slow further as the tariffs bite. Inflation remains at around the 3% level and may go up from there if tariffs are passed along to consumers. In other words, stagflation is a nasty word, but it is a possibility. Then think of profits, the baseline for stock prices. Chief financial officers are already marking down their expectations. That's never good for stocks. Consider the wealth effect. The rich take a hit when the market sells off. When you look at your diminished 401k, are you going to spend as freely as you did? If top earners cut spending, the whole economy slows. And what happens if some of our trading partners, other trading partners, join China in imposing stiff tariffs?
China will impose a 34% tariff on imports of all U.S. products starting on April 10th. Meanwhile, the Trump administration continues to promise the long-term gain will be worth it. We heard from Secretary of State Marco Rubio on tariffs before he left Brussels today. Watch.
I don't think it's fair to say economies are crashing. Markets are crashing because markets are based on the stock value of companies who today are embedded in modes of production that are bad for the United States. We have to be a country that thinks we're the largest consumer market in the world, and yet the only thing we export is services. And we need to stop that. We need to get back to a time where we're a country that can make things, and to do that we have to reset the global order of trade.
The other part of my question.
Well, the worst thing is to leave it the way it is forever. I mean, this just can't continue. We can't continue to be a country that doesn't make things. We have to be able to make things to provide jobs for Americans. That's it. It's that simple. China is an example. I mean, it's outrageous. I mean, they don't consume anything. All they do is export.
It's hard to see what the end game is here, Chris. There's quite frankly no rationale, no economic rationale for the way this has been put into place. It could be potentially damaging beyond what we currently consider if it goes into, as I said earlier, a full-blown trade war. But if China is going to retaliate, we could see retaliation from Japan, South Korea, possibly Taiwan, which would be unusual given that we are allies with them. And depending on what happens ultimately with Canada and Mexico, further retaliation there as well. So don't know the end game. Not quite sure what the point of this is, although the president has said several things. Number one, he would like to replace ultimately certain taxes with import taxes. He would like to raise revenue to finance tax cuts. Kind of hard to do that. It's not really compatible. This is a massive tax on the American people and certainly on American business.
This is what they say. It was on June 13th, 1930, that the Senate passed the Smoot-Hawley tariff, describing it as among the most catastrophic acts in congressional history. Now, this is the Republican-controlled U.S. Senate. And it said, despite the fact that 1,000 economists wrote a letter to Hoover saying, veto it, he did not veto it. And then it goes on saying the results were, and to use their words, disastrous. So disastrous that the American public voted the Republicans out of the House, the Senate, and the presidency 2 years later. Now,
what you're seeing is a war between the deep state shadow government and the Republican Party. That's what you're seeing right now. So this is all going to be in connection with, eventually it's going to be the same thing that took place in the movie Red Dawn. Watch the movie Red Dawn, REDDAWN, Red Dawn. You either watch the new one or the old one. But it's going to tell you about an invasion that's going to be taking place that's going to be facilitated by what's taking place when it comes to the Republican Party and the deep state.
to be fair, the Fed screwed up badly afterwards as the economy sunk as a result of this. And they're not going to do that again because they've learned that lesson. I don't know why Trump didn't learn the lesson of the Smoot-Hawley tariff, because I know the Fed learned the lesson of its mistakes in 1930, 31, and 32. That's one reason why the great financial crisis did not turn into a Great Depression. We flooded the banks with liquidity, which we did not do 95 years ago. But very honestly, I mean, they say it all. I wouldn't be surprised if President Trump scrubs this passage out of the website, because this is on the Senate Republican website.
Waiting to see the effects of this. I mean, most of us, I think, assume a recession is going to be a more powerful input than inflation. But we'll have to wait and see, as the Fed chair said, and they're just not in a rush to make a precipitous move here.
Ron, when we came on the air, we were down 1,600. We're now 1,850. It's gone up almost 100 points since you started talking. What's happening?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I haven't seen it. It's hard to see, any headlines that have come across.
Watch this. Are you able to watch this, Ron? It just keeps going up.
No, I'm staring right at the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting hammered here. The NASDAQ and the S&P are also down around 5%. The NASDAQ's in a bear market mode right now. So is the very small stock Russell 2000. They're both down 20% from their most recent highs. So this is the type of cascading sell-off you don't like to see as it gathers momentum moving into the close of the day. Could set up a very difficult Monday. We've had what I would characterize already as a mini crash in the market, and something larger could be in the future. But until we get clarity around the president's policies here, these markets are going to be somewhat unstable, to say the very least.
So with that being said, now we're going to get those off for the videos now. We're going to get back to the presentation to finish everything out. New to the channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, because a lot of people, especially, people in our family, they're not hip or they don't really care about the information. So show these type of videos to your family members who are NPCs. It's going to give them a certain perspective, to where they're able to understand what's going on intuitively as far as the economic system and as far as they using AI to harvest our energy and our neuromelanin to carry out this synthetic form of a golden age that's going to be propagated by the Trump administration. So it's showing you, the stocks are going down. Now, remember in the movie Leave the World Behind, right? In the movie Leave the World Behind, the inception of the problem, the guy he was basically demonstrating, he said that he knew what was going to be taking place, but he didn't know exactly when. He knew it was going to be mass chaos, but he didn't know when it was going to go down. And he said he was basing it off the market. He was basing it off the market on the stock exchange, right? So that's how they knew in the movie, the black guy who was in connection with Barack Obama. That's what they was basically insinuating. And then when you look at some of the movie, a lot of the art and the pictures he had on his wall and inside of his home, he had a lot of Moroccan stuff in his house. And he said that his wife was an artist or a painter, and she's in Morocco right now. So that's basically telling you about how the black nobility behind closed doors know what's going on when the planet is going to be in a state of destabilization due to the economic turndown. Because one thing you got to understand about the cosmic clock and the doomsday clock is tether connected to the financial clock, which is the debt clock system that is being controlled by the stock market. So the end of the world is basically the end of their system on an economic level. So when the stock market crashes in totality, that's when the doomsday clock is going to hit 12, right? So they've been telling you about a cyber attack, and then we all know that the segue to the movie Leave the World Behind, it led up into a civil war. So everything that you're seeing taking place right now is happening in real time. And it's the same writer from 28 Days Later, and he's putting out another movie called 28 Years Later, right? And I'm going to eventually do a breakdown on that video. So all these movies and all these videos I've been showing y'all is coming full circle, right? So for those coming in, I'm going to give a brief rundown about everything. So the basis of this video is talking about how they're using a technocrat system a cybernetic dictatorship to extract neuromelanin to create this form of artificial intelligence, a sentient being, and they upload in our genetics and our neurons into a neuromorphic cyber cloud to feed the archons, because the archons are ruler gods. They're not creator gods. So when you understand everything within the factions of the Gnostic text, it tells you how the archons, they mimic human behavior. But you got to understand, by way of the mythology, that the archons, the cherubim, the draconian, all these is basically the same factions of extraterrestrial entities when you understand the mythology of it. So they use in the technocrat system because they know that the God mind is the philosopher's stone. The philosopher's stone is the elixir of enlightenment, wisdom, and that's connected to your nervous system, that is also connected to the brain. So this is why they're going to use sensory resonance to destabilize the electromagnetic field that's connected to your nervous system. So they want to manipulate that energy to where you're not able to take in the bioconductivity from the transmission of the sun, to where you're able to activate the Christ conscious naturally, to where you don't need artificial intelligence. So they know that the artificial intelligence is another mechanism to keep you connected to the conscious energy grid, because the brain is connected to the holographic projection, because the neurons or the neurotransmitters in the brain is what keeps you tether connected to the gematria system, that is also tether connected to the gematria body. So artificial intelligence is another way, is another form of eugenics to extract your energy. So like I said, archons use artificial intelligence to harvest energy by way of technology, human emotion, religion, neuromelanin, eugenics, and Saturn and the moon, which is the external hard drive, the planet Earth, because that quantum satellite has the ability to disrupt the neurotransmitter conductivity sensor to where you're not able to take in the energies from the sun, because the chemical neuromorphic connection of the transmission of the sun, and when it activates the carbon, it has the ability to disrupt that energy. So what I'm saying is that the microscopic waves of energy from Saturn's cube, the cube of Saturn, of the Metatronic overlay, Metatron's cube, it has the ability to suck up microscopic waves of energy to feed these archons. So this is why they want you to look at everything from a external point of view. Everything that you need is already in you. You don't need nothing from artificial intelligence, because as I was telling you, your hair is the antenna, your eyes is the camera, the ears is the satellite, the nose is a sensor, the heart is the electromagnetic generator, the brain is the supercomputer, the neuroendocrine transducer, and then you got the pineal gland is the epitome of the virtual reality set when you get rid of the calcification process. So that's the basis of the video. So I appreciate you guys for tapping in. And then eventually I'm going to upload, once the guy gets done with the all the editing for the Charleston White thing. It was a really good turnout. He wants me to go on tour with him and with some HBCUs, and we're going to start speaking to kids and stuff like that, or kids in the college campus about and we're going to give them an intuitive basis about the socio-political aspect of civics and how to understand the political system and how it's intertwined with us, with them keeping us out of our sovereign capacity as far as like nationality and what it means as we get to the apex of the golden age. Because one thing a lot of people don't understand is that he's a lot more intelligent than what people perceive it to be, of what he demonstrates on media. I talked to me and him, we exchanged numbers, we had a really good conversation. So this interview was not, the embodiment of the character Charleston White. We got the man, and he showed up and he gave an introspective demonstration as far as like knowledge that can actually, edify our people. So now I got a few other things that's coming up. I believe I got something coming up with Billy Carson, and I'm going to be doing something at the Knowledge Fest. Supposedly, I'm gonna keep you guys updated. And the Knowledge Fest is in Louisville, I believe. So I'm gonna keep you guys updated on a multitude of things that's going to be taking place. But we in that time period, ladies and gentlemen. We in that time period. So you got to understand that the Hermetic principles, the 7 Hermetic principles, corresponds with your chakra system. So everything that is acclimated to artificial intelligence is to subjugate the law of rhythm, the law of vibration, the law of gender, the law of correspondence. It is being used and weaponized to manipulate the hermetic principles that works in synergy with your tablets of destiny, which is your scroll of all. Because when you're able to think outside the box, that's when you tap into the epigenetics. The epigenetics is activated by way of the subconscious mind, and it brings it to the forefront to where you remember who you are. When you remember who you are, you don't need a wicked ass system. You don't need nothing that's coming from the factions of artificial intelligence or the deep state shadow government. You don't need it. Everything's actually internal, right? So when you break out of the Metatronic overlay by way of mental frequency, that's when you're going to tap into the apex of fifth dimensional knowledge. So this is where we're going to get into the great separation aspect of it, because in the year 2027, that's going to be the great separation. Those who is thinking outside the box and those who are stuck in the box. That's what the great separation is all about, because the year 2027 is the year of the goat and the year of the sheep. The sheep is basically the lamb of the Bible when you talk about in Revelations, who has a seal of God on their foreheads. When you understand that methodology, and for those who are stuck in religion, that's what it's talking about, because it's non-ether disconnecting from the sixth ether energy, right? Because goat worship is Baphomet worship that is also acclimated to their systems of Luciferian technocracies and things of that nature. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys watching this video, because, you know, we're in that time period where they're going to need the neuromelanin so much to the point where, just like when you see fiends and bums lining up at the blood bank and stuff like that, and giving away, you know, they bone marrow and stuff, you know, to get finances and donating plasma and all that. That's how it's going to be in the future when they need that neuromelanin, because they know that the neuromelanin has an intrinsic amount of electrical signals, because it's natural ether. Natural ether is natural electricity. So that's why they need the energy of electrodes that is extracted from the neuromelanin to activate that Christ consciousness. That's what they use in the neuromelanin for. It's a electrical conductor to activate that artificial intelligence to where it's able to become sentient, right? But like I said, we in that time period, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to transition it into a second great awakening period. And during that second great awakening period, use that time period to find your purpose by way of your authenticity. Thanks for watching.
10, 14.